Hello and welcome to another one of my videos. I am Screen Scene Guru, and today I'll be discussing some more comic book reviews. Hopefully, if you guys have been watching for any amount of time, you've seen my other comic reviews on the channel. I am going into some new comics today. We're going into The New Warriors and some awesome Superman comics as well. So let's get started, guys. Take this off real quick. Set it down. So going into our first two comics, guys, we've got The New Warriors. This is issue number 11 from 1991, titled Forever's Yesterday, part 1 of 3. So very interesting cover, guys. We've got Nova and some of the Avengers fighting against Wolverine. So a very interesting cover art. Starting off, we've got to see a new version of Earth, a new version timeline, with a couple of heroes returning. We've got Vance, which is on the Guardians of the Galaxy. He's the future Captain America, as well as, let's see, we've got Angelina flying across the city, which is nice. Then we get to introduce to our villains of the comic, which is very interesting. In this new era of time, they have the Sphinx, who changed history by making Egypt one of the most dominant superpowers of the world. And then they created the United States of Ashera. So that's very interesting. All the heroes are still there. It's just their costumes are a bit different. And they're now fighting against the Mutant Rebellion. So that's very fascinating as well, guys. We see Storm is with them, Iron Man, Nova, the Sphinx, and of course Captain America, which is now called something different. We get to see the Sphinx kind of overpowers some of our heroes, getting ready to destroy them. And then of course we get the introduction of Wolverine, which is really cool to see. Him fighting the heroes. Because right now the mutants are in an underground bunker, fighting to their freedom. Then we get to see a bit of Wolverine get taken out by the Sphinx, which was interesting. They show his melted adamantium skeleton, which is fascinating. And then of course the mutants are allowed to escape, which it seems like our new formed Captain America is quite upset about by Nova. Then going on, we get to see the heroes return. Well, not heroes actually, these are the villains, with Nova being conflicted. He talks about how we've been told to take on the mutant menace, the mutant problem, yet the mutants never go for the kill. So he knows there's something up there. Then Nova returns home to his folks and to his brother. It's very nice. Questioning whether he's done the right thing, joining the Avengers. So that's very interesting as well. Kind of a moral dilemma. I do like that they show off some of the iconography from Egypt in the city, because of course Egypt is the head of this new country. Then we get to see Magnus and his fellow mutants in their underground bunker, which is very interesting. Similar to Dark Futures in the X-Men comics and X-Men TV show. Then we get to see exactly what happened, which changed the events of the past. We had Moses go up against the head of the Egyptian guard with magical snakes, and unfortunately the Egyptians' magic proved more powerful, so that led to the priestess and the priest of Egypt going to find a magical stone. Once they put it on, he became what is known as the Sphinx, who could bend reality to his whim. So then we see that's pretty much where Egypt became the main dominant superpower. So that was interesting. They do show throughout the eras, throughout the ages, wars and conflicts that happened, and the Sphinx, immortal throughout time, was able to give immortality to his bride, and they basically advised Egypt on how to become the United States of Ashra, which is very interesting. You see the creation of the nuclear bomb in their lifetime, and more of global dominance, global control. So that's cool. Then, of course, the Sphinx, knowing that his life was near over, he gave his stone, the Kai stone, which his bride originally found. He gave it up to her, and then passed on. So that was sad. The original Sphinx is gone. But now, of course, in this new, rapidly changing world, superhuman were becoming more gifted or cursed, those than common man. Some received the abilities through accidents of fate, some through accidents of birth. So that's very interesting, and they show you a whole group of super people, which is very cool. Like that. And then, of course, we get to see Nova is meeting with a ghostly specter who calls himself, Truth Incarnate. So very interesting, a white cloaked figure. Then we go back to Magneto's group, getting a signal from behind the base. They're trying to infiltrate the Avengers compound to try to stop the controversy, stop the fighting. Then we get to see Magnus ordered a secret message to be sent out to their mole, who we find out is Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four. So that's very interesting. Then going on to our last page, we see the Lady Sphinx has discovered their plans, and she's prepared to wipe out everything to prevent them from gaining control of timeline or history. So that's very fascinating. Lady Sphinx is prepared and ready for battle. So that was this issue, Forever Yesterday, part 1 of 3. Very interesting stuff, guys. Highly recommend picking out comics if you guys haven't already out of your collection, or just going to the store. So going on to my next issue, I've got more of The New Warriors. So let's see, this is issue number 29. It's from 1992. The Land Must Change. So very interesting cover art right here. That's nice. And as the New Warriors are described, they are mutants. So a group similar to the X-Men, but it seems like we also have a few spacefaring friends as well, like Nova. So that's cool. Captain Marvel has joined the New Avengers, or the New Warriors. Right now they're being interviewed by a TV host, which is very interesting. Kind of TMZ style, or MTV. And they are discussing whether or not they should have interfered in a civil war with a fake nation. You get to see a bit of flashback with their battling going on, which is pretty cool. We get to see Lady Namor as part of the New Warriors. So it is kind of like a what-if comic. Going on, we get to see the battle that ensues. Big battle, which I love, the graphics. A lot of robotic soldiers that they're having to fight off against. So that's cool. Going on to this, we've got Speedy having to save another member to their machines, their war machines, being very active. Some ad. Okay, right here we got some more battle flashback, which is nice. They're trying to get a certain dictator out of power in this country to stop the bloodshed. That was cool. They do get air support from the U.S. military, dropping big, heavy weapons experimental, high energy weapons. Then of course they jump back to the journalists covering the story, and we can see a secret agent taken out, which is very interesting as well. Going on, we get to see Nova into the battle, as well as the other new warriors. That's very fascinating. Let's see. Then we've got the true forces of nature, which were creatures they were trying to capture to see if they could become new members of the new warriors. These are creatures that were on the enemy's side. It's very fascinating. Each side of the conflict had their own super soldiers. Checking that out. Very nice. Some ads. And then going into this, we see some of the creatures know the moves of the new warriors, so they're having to switch back and forth between who they're playing with, who they're fighting against. So that's cool. And of course, Lady Namor put her guns up against a vengeful terrorist about to take out one of her own. So that's cool. Then of course, we see a bit of a briefing after the initial battle has gone down, where they're giving the special agent a bit of asking her what happened. And then she discusses that she was the one who took out the terrorist. It's very fascinating stuff right there. That's the end of issue 29 from 1992. The Land Must Change. Pretty cool cover art, guys. Highly recommend you guys checking out the comics. I haven't heard of the New Warriors before. I picked out these first 2 issues for my collection. So this is a very interesting and eclectic team. It has some of the Guardians in it, original Guardians of the Galaxy. It has some spacefaring people, so that's really cool and fun. Right now, I do want to give a bit of shout out to everyone that is liking the video, commenting down below. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. You can also follow me on Instagram, on Threads, and TikTok at Scene Screen Guru, so be sure to do that, guys, if you haven't already. I very much thank you for the support. So going into my next 2 comic books, let's check these out real quick. Alright. So I've got some Superman comics. These are pretty cool. I'm trying to get through my whole collection now that I've gotten done with the James Gunn film from 2025. There is a review up on the channel if you guys want to check that out. I am currently trying to get through Superman 3, Quest for Peace, and Superman 4, and of course Superman Returns. I'm going to be uploading those on the channel as well. But going into this, we've got Superman issue 221, Villains United tie-in. So this is Bizarro versus Doom. Bizarro versus Zoom. Loser takes all. I'm trying to see a year. If I can give an ad on here and see if we've got 2005. So this issue was from 2005. Very interesting with Bizarro on the cover. I read this because recently we heard a scoop story of how Kevin Feige asked James Gunn when we were going to be getting a Bizarro in his DC universe. Now, I have a rumor, speculation, that the clone in the film Superman that got sent into the black hole, it's a bit of spoilers, guys, might be returning as Bizarro. I'm not exactly sure. It could be a very easy way to tie it in. This is the first Bizarro comic book I've read, so that's very interesting as well. So starting off, we get to see him flying through the city, having a good time. We know as Bizarro, when he says things, he really means the opposite of them because he's coming from a parallel universe where everything is backwards. So that's very fascinating. We start off with him fighting a giant one-eyed robot and him having a lot of fun because he believes this is a new friend of his. So that's interesting. I'm not exactly sure where this one-eyed robot came from, but it looks like it might be an alien, or maybe even working for Luthor. You get to see Jimmy Olsen talking to his new assistant, which is pretty cool. Her being in the bit of line of fire as Jimmy tries to protect her from falling debris. So that's cool. Then we get to see, of course, Superman shows up on scene to take out the robot and save Bizarro, because he is his clone, technically a brother of his. So that's nice. Then we get to see Bizarro asking why Superman broke up the fun with his new friend, and Superman kind of blows it off as, ridiculousness. But then, of course, we do see the robot that Superman punched does injure or break a plane, which leads to the people on the ground being worried. I do like the Supernatural ad they put in that. Oh my gosh. Back in the day. We see Superman flying down to stop the helicopter blade from hurting Jimmy and his assistant. So very good. Classic Superman. And of course, Jimmy tries to get a few words in with Superman, but he's quick to having to save the day. Clark shows up and asks Jimmy what happened, and Jimmy kind of gives Clark a bit of a snap. He kind of says, "Oh, you're too late to the story, Pint, following news reports, following the police scanner." And then, of course, we see Lois has to kind of snap Jimmy straight and tell him, "Hey, don't disrespect my husband." So that was very interesting. You see they reconnect in their office, Lois and Clark, after she tells an employee to change shirts. And he goes and gets another Hawaiian shirt on, which I thought was very funny. Then, of course, we see Jimmy having a hard time getting his deadline done, getting his story written. So he's a bit crammed, a bit stressed. And then, of course, we see Bizarro write a message in the sky for Jimmy Olsen, a top story. So that's cool. And this was a lesson, I guess, that Bizarro was trying to make Jimmy learn, not to be a douche to Clark. We see Bizarro go to a bank, and they offer him money, but he tells them he wants the real currency, not money. So from Bizarro's perspective, he wants the garbage, which is very interesting. Garbage man. So then you get to see him kind of collab with Cheetah. Cheetah wants him to join their group of nefarious heroes. Then he flies off to meet Jimmy and Clark at the Daily Planet. So that's really cool. We get to see him tell them that he's got a plan to destroy the world. So they take that pretty seriously, thinking that destroying the world means what it means, when really he's telling him he's going to do the opposite. We see Jimmy offer a guy a loaf of bread in the cab to drive him to Bizarro's house, which is just a big ramshack of garbage. So that's very interesting as well. And then right at the end, right when Superman arrives to stop Bizarro, fireworks start blowing up. And Bizarro basically shows him that there's nothing to worry about, the world isn't going to end. He just wanted this to be a big story that Jimmy could write to try to help him learn to be kinder to Clark, which is nice. And they see a bit of a dialogue between Superman and Bizarro recognizing each other, which is cool. And then, of course, Bizarro says he's going to leave Earth alone, which is a lie, obviously. Everything he says is backwards. So he does stay on Earth, and we see Cheetah actually come back at the end, working for Luthor, and that Bizarro has challenged Zoom to a race. So that's very fascinating, right at the end of the comic. So that was issue 221 of Superman, Bizarro versus Zoom, from 2005, guys. Really awesome stuff. First Bizarro comic I've read, so that's down, logged. going into my last couple of comics, guys, we've got an iconic one for the ages. This is The Funeral for a Friend 3 of 3. Superman, the Man of Steel, issue number 20, and this is from 1993. So very interesting stuff here, guys. This is the funeral episode or issue after he was beaten by Doomsday. So very fascinating. I think I might have the Doomsday comic. I have to go looking through my collection, but we start off with the aftermath of the Battle of the City. We see Lex Luthor trying to arrange the finances for the funeral to be had in Central Park. Kara is there, Supergirl, which is very interesting. In the 80s, in the comics, Supergirl worked for Lex Luthor, which is very fascinating. And Lex had hair, too. We see him discussing how to get the Superman monument to Central Park, and Kara offers to fly it there herself because it will be the last thing she was going to be able to do for her cousin. So that's very sweet. We see, of course, the Kents are very melancholy about the situation going on television. They want to be there, but they know it will be too crowded for them to go to Metropolis. So really sad news there. We see Lois kind of being, very sad at Daily Planet. Perry White offers to give her his ticket to the funeral, but she says she can't make it. Then we see her standing up on the kind of balcony where she used to meet Superman, calling out to him. Very sad. They kind of tried to do this in the Zack Snyder Justice League with Lily Adams, I want to say, or look real quick. Make sure you got the casting right. Pull up real fast. Turn this on. It's the cast. It was. I didn't even put her in the top row. Wow, that's kind of crazy. Oh, she's right at the bottom. Wow. Amy Adams as Lois Lane. That's a disservice. When you look up the Man of Steel cast, she's at the very bottom. But yeah, we've got Amy Adams as Lois Lane in the Zack Snyder's, Justice League, where she was kind of sad about Superman being dead. But here we get to see the funeral walk, which we didn't get to see in Zack Snyder's Justice League, because Zack Snyder's Justice League had 6 people. But this is a grand funeral walk. You get to see JLA, JSA characters from clearly several decades. So I'm glad they put that in the comics. Then we get to see the crowd, mourning Superman. Everyone saying, all the things he did for them, the way he saved them. Someone so good shouldn't have to have died. Then we get to see Lobo, which I'm very excited to see Jason Momoa as Lobo in Supergirl next year. I can't wait. So that's really cool. Lobo's even shocked. I can't believe it. He didn't get his piece. So we do see a couple of bad actors in the crowd. Like this guy brings out a smoke bomb, and Batman strings him up with his grappling hook. So there are heroes in the crowd to make sure people don't act up during the funeral. Get to see some people, sad about the funeral procession. And then, of course, Zack Snyder did show this off. I do give him credit for this. People selling merchandise of the Superman, the bloody Superman shirt. We did get to see that in the Suicide Squad movie. So there is a bit of tie-ins there. Then we get to see, the big statue in Central Park, people filling in the park to see the spectacle. And Jimmy Olsen is approached by the mob. They want him to sell the picture of a dead Superman to them. And he refuses, of course, which leads to Robin jumping in and cracking a couple of heads which is nice. I always love to see Robin join the group and do something. And we also got a few other heroes corralling the crowds because they are becoming uneasy. Emotions are running high. So that's very fascinating as well. We see Lex Luthor on the teleprompter try to corral the crowds, try to tell them to calm down. Everyone will have their time to pay their respects. So that's very interesting. Ma and Pa Kent are clearly sad and upset. You get to see a deep cut of what clearly looks like Bill Clinton as the president speaking after the death of Superman, how it's a tragic event for the country. I think it's kind of interesting that they put Bill Clinton in it, but I mean, what can you do? They do have a really cool moment, sad moment for Martha and Clark. They bury some of Clark's effects in the hole where his ship crashed, in the crater. That was really sad, because of course they do not think he's coming back. So they put his teddy bear and scrapbooks in the hole and buried it. But yeah, it was very, very emotional. And then of course you see the casket being lowered and closed by the heroes, and everyone giving their last words and respect. And then Lois finally calls Martha and Jonathan Kent, and they explain that they can come down to Metropolis to be there for her, because she doesn't have a close relationship with her father, the Colonel. Her mother's passed. She doesn't have siblings. So now that Clark's dead, she doesn't exactly know where to turn. And she called the kids, which was very good. They did something similar to that in the Zack Snyder film as well. Real quick before I leave you guys, I do want to go into my Fantastic Four omnibus. I am going through it currently, getting ready for the movie to drop this Friday. We also get Comic-Con dropping, which is really cool. I do want to just go back a couple pages just to show you the issue I just got done reading. Issue number 2. Fantastic Four are facing off against the Skrulls. So I hope you guys can see that alright. Interesting to see the Skrulls were introduced in the 1960s. Starting off, we see, the Thing taking on an oil rig, Sue Storm turning invisible and stealing a diamond, and then a wartime monument statue being burned to a crisp by the Human Torch. So some very interesting things happening, as well as Mr. Fantastic's arm reaching into a power plant, shutting off power to the city. But then, of course, once they all regroup, they begin to tell the tale of how they all are imposters, Skrull aliens that have posed as Fantastic Four to turn the public opinion on them. So that's very fascinating. And then we see the real Fantastic Four in a hunting lodge cabin, reacting to the news. They are quite upset, of course. Ben, the Thing, wants to smash things. Then we get to see the very end of this issue. Reed is discussing how it's his fault. All of the heroes have their powers, and so thus it is his responsibility to make sure they are all kept in the good graces of the public. I've also began this next issue, part 2, Prisoners of the Skrulls. This is where the government comes in to try to wrangle up Fantastic Four. Very interesting stuff. They take them to a government facility where they have specialized rooms for each one of them, which I thought that was very much like the 2015 movie, which was very interesting. Pull up real quick. My glasses real quick. Got the new Fantastic Four, of course, the 2005 Fantastic Four. I want the 2015 Fantastic Four. Okay, let's see. 2015, it's an hour, 40 minutes. We got the director. Josh Trank. So yeah, Josh Trank attempted to kind of adapt that issue of the comic in his movie, where the student scientists were experimenting. This one they didn't go into a rocket ship, of course. They went to another dimension, which I thought was interesting. So showing off all of the Fantastic Four were imprisoned in their specialized cells. And then, of course, they discovered a way out. Invisible Woman simply stepped out when they were giving her a dish to eat. Reed found a loose rivet and was able to slip through the tiniest crack. And then, of course, Ben was able to pound down the walls that kept him. Human Torch was able to find a vent where he was able to turn into the Human Torch and burn his way out. And then they all began their journey to try to escape. They discussed that they had to destroy public property in order to get the Skrull's attention, and so that Johnny could be a plant, a spy, sent in by Fantastic Four to stop the Skrulls. He does infiltrate their group and send out a flare to alert the others, so that's good. While he tries to slow them down, the Skrulls already have a weapon drawn on him, which Mr. Fantastic's able to catch and avert tragedy, so that's really good. Right up here we get to see they do catch the Skrulls off guard and subdue them. Then they get onto the Skrulls' rocket ship, which is just looks like a water tower, and they commune with the aliens above the invasion fleet. So that's very interesting. They talk to the head Skrull, who asks to provide proof, and this is pretty much where I am in the comic right now. They show them a sci-fi horror film, pictures from their own cinema, to dissuade the alien invaders. They talk about how they have creatures, warships, and giant bugs to take out any invading force. And the Skull Commander is shocked by this. He can't believe that Earth's defenses are so high for a primitive world. They also discuss, let's see, right through here, after they are returning to Earth from meeting with the aliens, Ben begins to turn back into human form. That's very fascinating. Get to see the Fantastic Four captured. So very interesting stuff there, guys. And that's pretty much where I left off in the comic. Ben turning back into human and then back to rock form. Very interesting stuff from the omnibus. Highly recommend you guys check out the comics, pick out whichever ones you like, and continue reading. Figure out the stories of what they tried to tell us back in the day, catching up for the new movie coming out. So big shout out to everyone watching, everyone supporting the channel. I want to give a big thanks to everyone. I already made it to 73 subscribers, so that's pretty high. But until next time, guys, be sure to check out my future videos. Alrighty, have a good one. Bye.